Welcome to the fourth session of supporting diversity in the workplace. This session will focus on how to attract and select candidates using an inclusive recruitment process. We will be looking at understanding the attraction and selection process, creating a diverse and inclusive advertising campaign, running an effective interview process, and making the right selection for the role. So let's have a look at the benefits first of an inclusive recruitment process. Benefits for the organizations are not too dissimilar to an inclusive organization more generally. So the organization has better chances of getting the best talent. Eliminating barriers to entry will allow you to pick from a wide range of diverse talent, no matter which demographic they fall into. Different viewpoints. Individuals with different cultural upbringings, religious views and skill sets make for well-rounded teams and enable faster and better informed decisions. Better culture. A more diverse workforce leads to a broader and more adventurous business culture. Ultimately, working alongside a mix of people from different backgrounds makes for a fascinating workplace and increased employee engagement. Innovation leaders. Employees from different backgrounds lead to diverse ideas. So it may sound simple, but many organizations ignore that fact. But there are also benefits for the recruiter. More candidates. Making your recruitment process more inclusive means you attract more candidates from different sources. Diversity initiatives can help recruiters feel hard to hire for roles and boost the talent pipeline for future vacancies. Better candidate quality. Recruitment can be a bit of a numbers game sometimes, so finding more candidates invariably leads to finding more high quality individuals who are primed and ready to take on your vacancy. Faster time to hire. More candidates plus higher quality equals vacancy being filled faster. Creating a more inclusive and diverse pipeline of candidates means you have everything you need to progress through the recruitment process at pace. Some data here from the Diversity Council of Australia. 31% of Australian organisations say they can't find workers to fill jobs. So that is the data from the Australian Bureau of Statistics from June 2022. 3 million Australians are looking for work or want to work more. So the number hovered around the 3 million for the past 7 years. That's from 2015 to 2021. So these people are capable, talented and willing, but they're overlooked by employees and are most likely to be from marginalised groups. So Australians who belong to multiple marginalised diversity groups are even more likely to be left off employers' radar. So let's try to tap into this talent pool. Quick look at the recruitment process first. How does the whole process look like? We start with the top left. There's preparation. This is the most overlooked stage, but nevertheless very important. Then you have to advertise, interviewing stage, screening, selecting, and hiring and onboarding. So for the preparation, think about what makes this job stand out from the competition. Is it location, salary, organizational brand? What are the selling points? And understand why you are hiring for this role. What's the history? Has it been successful? How many predecessors? What is the current manager, etc., etc. Review the job description and check against the reality of the role's functions. Perhaps there's something being missed. Perhaps the job description needs rewriting. Or have a look at the job description again. Is the position description inclusive? Get the salary package right before going to market. Benchmarking is a great way here to convince leaders of maybe needed change in that area. So these are the steps needed to prepare for a good advertising campaign. The focus is on rethinking the role, particularly for senior roles. Has it worked in the past? Why not? Was there high turnover in this role? If yes, The role might have been poorly designed, hence the high turnover. But regardless, if it is a new role or a steady permanent role, these questions should be asked so that a strong value proposition can be put on the market. So this is the time to rethink the role that goes to market. Then you advertise your role for inclusion. So job listings play a very important role in recruiting talent and often provide the first impression of a company's culture. Define the job requirements clearly. Check your desired and required criteria and only put into essential or required if it is an absolute must. We often see job listings with a long list of essential criteria, which obviously reduces your applicant pool. Consider here also qualifications. Have a look at them. Do you really need a university degree for this role? And if so, consider maybe to write relevant university degree instead of specifying the exact degree. Some people might not apply if their university degree is slightly different, but they would also fit to the role. I still see advertising that state a minimum numbers of years of experience, which is rather discriminative and will definitely exclude candidates. What if you only have 2 years of experience and the advertisement states 3 years? Do you apply? So recommendation here, just to state experience in whatever it is. Use gender neutral language. They should. Even subtle word choices can have a strong impact on the application pool. Research shows that masculine language, including adjectives like competitive and determined, results in women's perceiving that they would not belong into that specific work environment. On the other hand, words like collaborative or cooperative tend to draw more women than men. Software programs that highlight stereotypically gendered words can help counteract here. There's even a few free ones out there on the market. Use a clear job title, avoid jargon and use accessible formats. So keep the language simple. Partner with specialist agencies for targeted recruitment. That could be disability agencies, Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander employment agencies and so on. And tell stories. What makes your organisation a great place to work? Use appropriate job boards, your company's job site and social media platforms if appropriate. Use social media such as LinkedIn, and also contact potential candidates. I would like to encourage you to be proactive here. So what can go wrong in the hiring process? I like to share some common reasons. Number 1, job titles aren't resonating with candidates. Number 2, your organization's online presence is letting you down. Depending on the position, it's usually one of the first things people do. So check out the website. So does your website also display and reflect the great culture you are advertising? Another one is that job posts are missing the information that candidates care about most. So what are the perks of the position? Conscious and unconscious bias in recruitment screening. I have heard stories of people of Indian descent who changed their first name to make it sound more Western to secure an interview. So it is imperative that managers and supervisors involved in selection and recruitment processes have the necessary self-awareness to identify their own individual unconscious biases. You can't get rid of bias, it's human nature, but you can enhance awareness. And awareness can be enhanced through training. I will get to that a bit later. Another reason could be not following up. If you get a great resume, schedule an interview. Otherwise, you might lose the candidate. The candidate might have found something else if the whole process takes too long. Or if someone asks the question, answer straight away. There are also a number of reasons why applicants drop out of the hiring process. Number 1 is time-consuming online recruitment processes asking applicants to repeat things that are in their resume. For example, to repeat the employment history. Another one is asking that applicants address the selection criteria in writing and on first contact. So our advice here is to get the CV first. Don't even ask to address selection criteria in the first instance. People are busy and don't want to spend hours preparing an application, and you are disadvantaging people that naturally are more orally focused, and they might have difficulties addressing pages-long selection criteria of things that in most cases are obvious if you read the resume. The next one is an inflexible screening process. So for this one, I'd like to share a personal story. A friend of mine is a planner with some highly sought after qualifications, and he moved across Australia a couple of years ago and then looked for a new job. And one position he applied for was at a large organization. The organization then, within the recruitment process, asked him to please send a video and answer in that video some questions. So he's a rather shy, introverted guy, and he honestly tried to record himself a few times, and at the end he couldn't do it. It was just not him. So then he asked the company if he could just please talk to someone or write something. The answer was no, he has to send in the video because that's the process. So guess what? He dropped out of the recruitment process, and the organization missed out on recruiting a great talent because he went elsewhere. What I also like to highlight in sharing this is that with certain selection methods, certain people are advantaged or disadvantaged. So extroverted people and people who are super confident are usually in a better position in interviews, but that doesn't mean they are more qualified for the position. In my example, a planner doesn't need to sell themselves. They don't need to talk to a lot of people. They rather need to understand their Excel spreadsheets. Different story if you want to hire a fundraising campaigner. You probably want someone really bubbly, who's happy to record videos, present themselves. So think about that aspect beforehand. Another reason could be no after-hours phone numbers provided for inquiries. So if you're working full-time, maybe you want to call after 5 p.m. if you have any questions. So suggest to provide a phone number, an after-hour phone number. Strict wording around closing dates. Be mindful as not to make people excluded by time frames, by super strict time frames. So if you have someone, say, with dyslexia who's just seen the advertisement, might need a little bit longer to put the application together, I would recommend to actually have in your advertising text, contact us, talk to us if you like to receive more information, or if you need more time for your application, or if you like to send your application in a different format. So that opens up more diverse ways for candidates to actually apply. Particularly at the moment, if you're not getting bombarded with applications, as I understand is the case at the current market for a lot of positions. Lengthy job descriptions is another point. Keep it short, simple. People need to understand quickly what the position is about and what you're looking for. Last point is no direct person to contact. We would recommend here to put a name and a phone number and email address into your advertisement. Let's have a look at attracting candidates a bit more. And let's have a look at flexible and hybrid work options, as they are a great way to attract candidates, and a lot of candidates are now actively looking for those flexible and hybrid work options. So it is a very good way to add value to the role on offer. And there's not only potential to offer a higher level of flexibility and better work-life balance for employees, it can also mean that these often excluded from the workforce due to personal responsibilities, being differently abled, or because of other circumstances, can participate in meaningful employment. So what is it? Hybrid work refers to work arrangement that combines both aspects of both traditional office-based work and remote work. In this type of setup, employees have the flexibility to work from home or alternate between working from home and the office. So hybrid working is the where, the location of the work, and flexible working is the when. We're talking about flexible hours here. So what do flexible and hybrid work practices include? So there is working from home, working from an alternate location, flexible or staggered working hours, flexible time, time in lieu, and then you have the hybrid mix, agile activity-based working, compressed hours, as employees may work the same number of weekly working hours compressed into a shorter period. For example, a 35-hour week may be worked at a rate of 8.75 hours per day for 4 days instead of 7 hours for five days. Be mindful to consult the applicable award for potential overtime, safety and salary implications when offering that. And then you have your part-time work, overtime, you have your job share, shift swapping and split shifts. I would encourage you to use all type of flexibility available to attract and retain diverse talent and to foster an inclusive culture. However, those practices must be authentic. So we are providing a framework for flexible workplace arrangements. As flexible work options can substitute for lower pay than competitors or longer travel distances, etc., highlighting them to attract talent must be supported by an authentic flexible work program. Some organizations claim they are flexible, but in reality they are not. And if candidates find out during or after the recruitment process, that's obviously not ideal. I will be outlining what should be in place and should be made available for candidates if they request them. So that includes a hybrid work framework and policy, clear processes for applying for flexible work, examples and testimonies, how it is working in your organization, clear statements on how it is enabled, for example, what technology you are using, strategies detailing how work is organized, ensure flexible work is facilitated. For example, it is a good idea to discuss flexible work arrangements with your team members so that they are aware when others are available, or to find opportunities for teams to meet in real time and or conduct online meetings with a part that is informal, so you can have a few chats as you would do during office meetings. To regularly check in with team members is extremely important when working remotely or outside of standard hours. It can otherwise get quite lonely, and there's a risk of getting detached from the workplace and from your colleagues. Another point is clearly articulated values and commitment statements. So you find in your resources a flexible workplace framework and templates with associated documents for hybrid/flexible work. There are a few more things to highlight here. Make sure that flexible arrangements are getting reviewed regularly. Ensure hybrid work is distinct from award entitlements and rights, and ensure compliance with awards and contracts. Also keep in mind that not all organizations are ready to go hybrid for a number of reasons. So it is a good idea to do a bit of an assessment on hybrid readiness for managers and employees. So leaders and managers are the make or break point on hybrid work success. So it is crucial that leaders and managers are committed to the process and believe in the concept. So now we are still looking at attracting candidates. Developing employee value proposition is usually a good thing to attract candidates. So your EVP is your offer to current and future employees. It is the why work for us. It is about articulating clearly, succinctly and consistently why you are a great choice for the right people with the right motivations. And at its best, it should capture what you offer, what it is like to work for the organization, what employees should expect of you, and what you expect of them. So it is a good idea to start with conducting a market research to understand what candidates are looking for in a job and also what your competitors are offering. So your research should also involve running focus groups and interviewing current employees to gather information for your EVP. Why do people like working here? Particularly speak to a diverse range of people and those already working at your organization and get their views. Next step is to define your company's purpose and values, which will help establishing a strong foundation for your EVP. Also, define your benefits that are on offer. That could be competitive salaries, benefits packages, and perks aligned with the company's values. Highlighting your company culture, including diversity and inclusion initiatives, can also help attract candidates who share your values. Providing clear career progression opportunities and professional development programs can also help attract candidates who are seeking long-term career growth. Communication is the key here. You have to communicate your EVP effectively to potential candidates, both in job postings and during the interview process, to bolster your talent pipeline. So some examples could be a study time program, gym memberships, inclusive culture, additional days off for cultural events. It could be flexible work arrangement, hybrid work arrangements, etc. The most successful EVPs are unique, audience-focused, evidence-based, authentic, and the base for storytelling. So it's not just fancy marketing words. Start sharing stories about your employees. One example comes from Charters Towers Regional Council that I saw just recently. They posted on social media their council values champions at no costs, and it boosted their EVP. So great for showcasing diverse and inclusive teams. Now, before we're going into the interview phase, I would like to touch on cognitive biases. There are quite a number to remember and to be aware of. Number one is the first impression. One study found that impressions are made in the first 10 seconds of an interview could impact the interview outcome. So generally, 60% of interviewers will decide on a candidate's suitability within 15 minutes of meeting them. So that's quite quick. So be aware of that one. Likability. Another study suggested that employers hire people that they like the most on a personal level. So this is biased towards natural chemistry. Another one to watch out for. So ask yourself, does it matter if I like the person that I hire? Or how important is it to you? And if it is important, we would recommend to rate the candidate as you would on other skills during the interview by giving likability a score. You're making it more controllable. Then there is the affinity bias, well researched. So if you pick a candidate, you will more likely choose an individual whom you trust the most. And as it turns out, the people you trust the most are people that are similar to yourself. So it's not intentional. So people who are not like us get overlooked and left behind. It could be something that the candidate went to the same school as the interviewer or grew up in the same area. And then there is the halo effect. We project positive qualities on someone without actually knowing those qualities. So a single favorable attribute or characteristic of the candidate affects the evaluation of other unrelated characteristics. For example, if someone is very enthusiastic and has a positive attitude, it might overshadow their lack of skill or knowledge in a specific area. It could be also something that a candidate went to Oxford and we're assuming that it means they must be intelligent. And then there is a horn effect. It's similar to the halo effect, but it occurs when people believe that unwanted traits are connected. For example, your applicant has limited knowledge of the English language or communication skills, and that overshadows the rest of the skills. So keep in mind, maybe for the position that candidate is applying for, excellent English skills might not be necessary because the position is a highly technical position. No high language skills are necessary for that position to perform well. Then we have the confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is the tendency to process information by trying to find or interpreting information that's according to one's existing beliefs. For example, you have formed an opinion already on the candidate. Maybe you think that a female in the role would be better than a male, or whatever it is. Or now you're trying to find more information that confirms your already formed opinion. Or the candidate said something before that has formed your opinion, or you saw something in the resume that formed your opinion, and during the interview process you are trying to find more points to confirm your already formed opinion. So watch out for that one. Continuing on the topic of debiasing the process, we're now looking at inclusive interviews. Now that all preparations are done, our role has been advertised, we are selecting candidates to interview. If you like to do a pre-screening, be flexible in your process. For example, neurodiverse candidates would definitely prefer written questions. Other candidates might prefer chat or send in a video. Whatever you do, the easiest way is to call the applicant and find out what they prefer. So we'd like to ask a few questions beforehand. How would you like to answer them? Provide some options and then agree on a time to either call or send in the questions. When it then comes to the interview, here are some tips to make them as inclusive as possible. Number one is provide diversity and inclusion training to the interview panel members to help them recognize their biases. Listen to and learn from people with lived experiences of bias and marginalization. Employees from overlooked and under-leveraged talent pools are very well placed to identify and advise on how to make recruitment more inclusive. Then there's another one, to focus on fair treatment, not same treatment. It is the best way to be equitable and inclusive when you are focusing on treating people fairly rather than treating everybody the same. So treating people fairly requires us recognizing that people have different needs. So in practice, that means to send some of your questions to the candidate in advance so they can prepare their answers to those questions. Be flexible. Not everyone has the same access to support. Ensure that the interview location is accessible to all candidates and make any necessary accommodations if need be. Ensure also that your interview panel is diverse and represents a large range of backgrounds, experiences and perspectives. This can help reduce bias and ensure fair evaluation of the candidates. However, keep the interview panel as small as possible. It is not only intimidating for the candidate when 5 people are on the panel, it is also a lot of resource spending time on interviewing. I probably wouldn't recommend to go more than 3. Creating an interview environment that is welcoming to all candidates. That could be something, having a cultural diverse interview panel, which is a great start, but even better if someone from that diverse panel can escort the candidate, show them around, make them feel welcome. And this also includes providing as much information up front about the location, how's the parking situation, who's the contact person if they encounter difficulties. I would even consider providing a running sheet or including some questions that the candidates will get asked. So a bit of an agenda. The making feel welcome starts with the first contact. So is there anything the candidate might need? Ask the applicant if they need adjustment beforehand. Foster open communication during the interview process and allow candidates to ask questions about the company's cultures, policies and procedure, diversity inclusion initiatives. So make the interview as conversational as possible. I would always allow questions at any stage. Providing structured feedback to candidates after the interview is also another way for more inclusiveness, regardless of whether they are selected or not. It can help improve the candidate experience and promote diversity and inclusion. Just be mindful not to provide grounds for potential discrimination. Keep that feedback very objective. There is also a psychological advantage in conducting interviews in an inclusive way. The more relaxed a candidate is, the more the candidate will reveal from themselves and show more of their true self. Now we're going into the interview stage. I would like to share the 6 most common approaches or interview questions for designing interviews. So research shows that unstructured interviews with a lack of defined questions and whereby candidates' experience and expertise are meant to unfold organically through conversation are often unreliable for predicting job success. On the other hand, structured interviews whereby each candidate is asked the same set of defined questions and having a standardization of the interview process minimizes bias by allowing employers to focus on the factors that have a direct impact on performance. So, however, you can still wander off, and you should ask follow-up questions and wander off from your predefined structure. Otherwise, it will be a very boring question-answer situation. So we are more looking at a semi-structured interview, ideally, with a combination and mix of methods. So what questions do we have? We have hypothetical questions. For example, an interview question could be, imagine you're working on a team project and one of your team members doesn't meet their deadlines. What step would you take to address the issue? Knowledge competency questions. Can you walk me through your experience with Excel? Then you have behavioral questions. Tell me about a time when you had to resolve a conflict with a co-worker or customer. Value questions. Assess personal values and see if they align with the organization's values. What type of work really interests you? Which of your previous jobs have you found most interesting? Why? What aspects of your last job were most frustrating? If you could create the perfect job for yourself, what would it be? Then you have critical incidents. A critical incident interview uses a structured exploration strategy that provides information on what the candidate did, how they did it, and what they felt about a real critical situation they experienced in the past, which must be or should be relevant to the position being applied for. So as an interviewer, you could ask the candidate to explain how they handled a certain situation in the past. In your position as blah, 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 what would be the most challenging critical situation you experience? Or you can provide a whole scenario for the candidate, and the candidate has to react to that scenario. So you bring the whole questions more into the future, or you bring that scenario into the future. Work samples and practical assessments are a great, very inclusive alternative and an additional way to assess a candidate. So work samples are tangible evidence of the candidate's skills and abilities, which can be requested during the interview process. And these samples could include written documents, such as reports or proposals, design work, social media campaigns, or other relevant examples of previous work. Work samples offer employees a glimpse into the candidate's abilities and allow them to evaluate the candidate's fit for the roles. So grant writers, for example, could present a proposal that they have written for a previous organization if they are allowed to share, showcasing the candidate's ability to clearly articulate the organization's purpose, goals, and impact in a persuasive manner. A practical assessment is a highly inclusive assessment tool that is used during job interviews to evaluate a candidate's skills and abilities and have them complete a task or project that is similar to what they would be doing in the job they are applying for. So, for example, for a candidate for a graphic design position, they might be asked to create a mock design for a new product. Then we have the roving interview. So this is another option. Instead of an interview taking place in a neutral environment, consider a roving interview around the actual work site with just a hiring manager where the candidate can experience the working environment and then at the same time you ask some questions. Sometimes it might be beneficial and less intimidating to have a walk and talk instead of a sit down. In order to achieve a diverse and inclusive process, it is advised to use a combination of approaches. For example, autistic individuals might not be able to sell themselves in a job interview, so they need to be given the opportunity to show their skills and show their strengths. Hypothetical questions might also be difficult to answer for some neurodiverse candidates. However, they are useful if someone isn't experienced in a specific situation or hasn't experienced a specific situation in the past, but would have an idea on how to respond. For example, a candidate stepping up to a leading position, they might not have been exposed to handling typical queries of a leadership position. However, if you pose a hypothetical question to them, you can hear their approaches and potentially you can get an idea of their leadership style. So hiring and onboarding is the last stage of the recruitment process. So here are a few tips to make sure the process is smooth and the new hires are feeling welcomed and included from the moment they signed the contract. Stay in touch, engage with your new hires. Ask them what they need to know and provide information. Make sure their work area is prepared and ready. It is frustrating for a new employee to arrive on the first day of work and there's nothing prepared. Work with onboarding checklists, as it explains everything the new employee needs to know about the organization. Ensure employees undertake necessary training and understand their rights and responsibilities. Begin education on the D&I culture of your organization from the outset and encourage employee participation in D&I programs. So make champions and encourage ownership. So any effort you make during the onboarding process is very likely to have a long-lasting effect on the new employee and brings them right onto track. Now, in summary, irrespectively of the role you are hiring for, using inclusive design principles offers many, many benefits to the organizations, recruiter, and candidates. Avoid making the mistake of presenting unnecessary and burdensome barriers to potential candidates. Be open with your communication and ensure you have an employee value proposition which is well known inside and outside of the organization. Now, before I say thank you, some closing thoughts. The Diversity Council of Australia has released some guiding principles for inclusive recruitment, and one of them is to approach hiring for merit with caution, as it is subjective and we might exclude talent. Instead, the Diversity Council of Australia is encouraging to look for potential, and I would like to pass that thought on. And remember, today's dream employee might have been last month's imperfect candidate. So candidates simply come in different shape or work in a different way or form from what you are used to. Different from what you've anticipated doesn't mean deficit. It could be an opportunity to work differently and creatively in unexpected ways. Thank you.